In Pokemon games, there are certain Pokemon that you can pretty much expect to see every generation, and some of those are the Route 1 Pokemon. We get a Route 1 rodent, bug, and bird in every generation, and over the years we have seen them in all different shapes and sizes, but we haven't seen them in every type. There are multiple types that we've never seen on a Route 1 Pokemon before. So what if we did actually have a Route 1 Pokemon of every single type? Well, that is what we are going to find out in this video as we create some new Route 1 Pokemon with types that they've never had before. I have made these designs with the help of my friend RGreywind, who I've commissioned to do the artwork, and he will be linked in the description if you want to check him out. On that note though, let's go ahead and look at what unused types are amongst the Route 1 Pokemon. Between the bugs, birds, and rodents, there are currently 6 unused types, and those are Rock, Fighting, Fairy, Ice, Dragon, and Ghost. I've decided to spread these out amongst the birds, bugs, and rodents so that we can get a glimpse of a little bit of everything as far as the possibilities. So I've gone ahead and done 2 designs for each of these Pokemon categories that'll cover all of these unused types. And the first type that we're going to cover is Dragon. It is honestly pretty hard to fathom that a Route 1 Pokemon could ever actually gain the Dragon type, but that's also what makes the idea so fascinating, and if it ever did happen, this is what it might look like. This is Gorama, and I decided to give the Dragon type to the bugs here because I am going to take every chance to create that fabled bug-dragon type combination that I can get. It's not without a good fit though, because Gorama is based on the dragon-headed bug, which for obvious reasons would make for a great bug-dragon type. Naturally, this is also what would be the final evolution of this hypothetical regional bug line, because I don't exactly imagine that it would gain the dragon type before reaching its final stage, but it would definitely be worth the wait at the same time. Additionally, the name Gorama comes from Fulgoridae, which is the family of insects that the dragon-headed bug belongs to, as well as Gore to help with that intense dragon vibe, and then finally Maw, which refers to its large mouth and the term dragon's maw, which ties into its dragon inspiration and typing. I don't think that I've ever actually used a starting bug on my team before, to be honest, but I 1000% would if we got a dragon type that looked like Gorama. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at what a Route 1 fighting type could look like. For this one, I opted to make it a regional bird since the fighting-flying type combination sounded like a really interesting possibility to me that could make for a cool Route 1 Pokemon. And with that said, here we have BKO and Poltroon. With these two, I wanted to do the full evolution line in order to properly illustrate the concept that I had behind these Pokemon, and the key to that is in that aforementioned typing. With the fighting-flying typing, I thought an extremely fitting and fun inspiration would be the fight or flight response. This is a thing that both animals and people have that basically determines whether or not they're gonna fight or try to escape when faced with a dangerous situation. This concept inspires not just one of these Pokemon, but the entire evolution line. And BKO, the first stage, is based on the fight side of this equation in particular, while Poltroon, the second stage, is based on the flight side. This inspiration is why these Pokemon are also based on chickens, and it's why Poltroon, as the more cowardly side of this equation, is looking a little more chicken-like in particular compared to its first stage. This is also why BKO, as the fight side of this duo, is showing off a little bit more of a willingness to fight, and why it has some more aggressive traits in its design. In particular, some of these more aggressive and monstrous-looking traits actually come from dinosaurs, which you can see a little more specifically in its mouth and beak area, as well as with its tail. This comes from the fact that dinosaurs eventually ended up evolving into birds, and this is referenced in the evolution, with the first stage being the one that has all of the dinosaur-like traits, and then it becoming more of a true bird upon evolving. To put it simply, when this Pokemon evolves, it becomes more of a chicken, but not just physically speaking with its design. It also becomes more of a chicken in terms of its cowardice, because it goes from the fight side of the inspiration to the flight side. The twist, though, is that the cowardly Poltroon is where this Pokemon actually gains the fighting type, while BKO remains normal flying. I thought that this was an interesting twist compared to the more expected route of it becoming braver as it evolves instead, and overall helps to make these two feel a little bit more unique and original. I also really like how the names of these Pokemon came together as well, because BKO comes from beak as in bird, and the term TKO, which comes from boxing and mixed martial arts and stands for technical knockout, so it references the upcoming fighting type for this Pokemon as well as its more aggressive nature. Meanwhile, Poltroon is literally the word poltroon, which is a bit of a lesser known, lesser used word these days, which means coward. And then it is combined with the word poultry, since this Pokemon is a bird. So this one actually portrays the origins and inspirations of this Pokemon pretty dang perfectly. And overall, I feel like this concept comes together full circle with both of these Pokemon really, really well. And it's the kind of thing that I would genuinely love to see happen in a Route 1 bird. Up next, we're going to take a look at the Fairy type, and today's wonderful sponsor who made this video possible, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. These two are a couple of lovely subscription boxes that bring you goodies and treats that come straight from Japan, and this month it's all about the new year. Tokyo Treat's got a bunch of modern treats to start your new year off right, like the strawberry chocolate cake Kit Kats. And if you want a little more of a cultural experience, Sakura Co. is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that provides more traditional Japanese delights. And the boxes also come with an authentic piece of Japanese tableware too, like this really cool fabric coaster. If you'd like to start your new year off with something new and fun, you can hit the link in the description to pick up a box, and when you use code HOOPS at checkout, you'll even get $5 off of your first box. It even supports the channel too when you do, so give that a look, and a big thanks to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. for sponsoring. Now we're going to look at the Fairy type, and what might an early Route 1 Fairy type look like, you might be asking. Well, I opted to give the Fairy type to the rodents of the Route 1 group, and Vermilon is an example of what that could potentially be. Vermilon is a normal Fairy type more specifically, and as you might expect for a Fairy type, it is based on a classic folktale. That tale in particular is that of the Pied Piper. The story goes that a piper was called to a town once upon a time to help deal with a rat problem, and so, playing his magic pipe to gather the rats, he led them out of the town. Also, later on, when he wasn't paid for his work, he came back to the town and did the same thing again, except this time he did it with the town's children, and they were apparently never seen again. But we're gonna go ahead and ignore that for now, and just focus on the rats in the story, because that is what inspires Vermilon as a rat Pokemon. And additionally, it gets the whole rest of its appearance from the Pied Piper himself, as Vermilon itself is pied, which means to be multicolored and typically in some sort of a pattern. On top of that, Vermilon's tail is modeled after the magic pipe that the Piper used to lure away all the rats in the story, and also all of those children too. You know, now that I think about it, this would actually be a great inspiration for a regional variant Hypno, but I don't know if Game Freak is prepared to go there. Anyways, when it comes to Vermilon, and in particular Vermilon's name, it comes from the word vermin, since it's a rat, and the word Hamelin, which is the town in Germany where the Pied Piper story is said to have taken place. We are now going to wrap back around though and look at another bug type, and to this point I have also mostly just showcased final evolutions, but I've also done some first stages here as well in order to get a look at a little bit of both, so that is what this next bug type is going to be. For the next type in particular that we're also going to be working with, I decided to go with the Ghost type, since Bug Ghost is another really cool type combination, and it would also give a Route 1 bug a little bit of a boost in the coolness and viability department, since typically these Pokemon are either really weak or just forgettable compared to the rest of the Pokemon in any given region. So, with that said, I would like you to meet Lilarva, the little larva Pokemon. Now, this guy might seem pretty basic and plain, but he is a classic example of how sometimes there is more to a Pokemon's design than meets the eye. To start, Lilarva is based on the nymph or larval stage of a Cixid, which is a family of insects that are more commonly known as plant hoppers. These guys caught my attention because in their young nymph stage, they are a very striking and unique looking white color, which I thought looked pretty ghostly and therefore is where the ghost type came from. Due to the cylindrical shape of these little bugs along with their white color, they also reminded me a bit of the classic sheet ghost too. So overall, Lilarva is a combination of these two elements, which I think came together quite well. In fact, it actually works even better than I thought it would, because as I continued to do research into this concept, I discovered something that wraps this idea up in the most perfect bow that you could ever possibly imagine. So when I was trying to find out what to name this thing, I settled on Lilarva because 1, it's little, 2, as a first stage bug type, it's also a larva, and 3, it turns out that larva is actually a Latin word, which originally referred to ghosts, spirits, and demons instead of bugs. So it turns out that basing a larva Pokemon on a ghost actually works way better than anyone would normally think at first glance. And I really love designs like that just have way more going for them than you might think, even though on the surface it's just this really simple and basic looking design. We have still got some more types to cover though, so we are now going to go ahead and take a look at the rock type. I decided to pair the rock type with the regional birds, since rock flying is the kind of combo where the types are basically opposites of each other, and I thought that would make for an interesting Route 1 Pokemon. And in this case, it ended up resulting in Terravian. As you can see, Terravian is a final evolution, and it is also an owl Pokemon. And although we have seen other owl Pokemon before, this one is a bit different, as it is based on the burrowing owl, which are known for their ties to the ground despite being a bird, and in particular how they nest in burrows in the ground, which they either dig themselves or use from other animals. I thought this provided a good basis for a rock flying type, and I also decided to portray all of these digging aspects by also basing this Pokemon on a miner. For instance, the top half of this Pokemon's head is meant to resemble a mining helmet, and the white spots that dot the body of the burrowing owl have now become jewels and gemstones on Terravian. In fact, I could imagine this Pokemon being a bit of a treasure hunter, and when it finds a shiny stone or something that it likes, it stores it within the tufts on its wings, which could explain why these gemstones and jewels are there in the first place. Additionally, when it comes to the name of this Pokemon, Terravian comes from the word terra, referring to the earth, and avian, which refers to the bird and flying side of this Pokemon. And also, I just think it sounds really cool too. So all things considered, I think it makes for a great fit, and it would also be a pretty cool way to do a regional bird, in my opinion. One thing that I really like about this concept of creating Route 1 Pokemon of every type is that it combines the literal first Pokemon that you find in the wild with types that sometimes are reserved for the very late points in the game. For example, Ice is a pretty late game type since you don't usually come across it until about the 7th or 8th gym, so it's always a shame that you never really get the chance to put something like an Ice type on your team right away from the start, and it's why I think this little guy is so interesting. This is Snowdent, and it is how I imagine you can encounter an Ice type as one of the first Pokemon that you see on your adventure. While Ice is definitely the theme of this Pokemon, it is still a normal type as well in order to maintain those Route 1 vibes, and therefore is a normal Ice type. And I chose the rodents to use with this particular type because I ended up basing this Pokemon on a Lemming, which is a type of Arctic rodent which just seemed perfect for this kind of role. Admittedly, I have made other Fakemon based on a Lemming before, but I feel like this one is probably the best because it just feels like such a good fit for this idea in particular. Additionally, as you may know if you watch my videos, I am very much into round Pokemon. And I got to make Snowdent round because he's also based on a snowball, and in addition to that, he's based on a cotton ball too, which is meant to blend the fur of a rodent with the white roundness of a snowball, and I love how unique he ended up looking as a result. Snowdent as a name is also pretty fun too because it comes from snow and rodent, as you may have already figured out by now, but it's the kind of name that kind of just rolls right off the tongue and makes you feel like you've got a cool Pokemon on your hands when you say it. Honestly, I feel like all of these designs actually turned out pretty good, so you guys are gonna have to let me know in the comments which one is your favorite, and if you think Pokemon games should start branching out a little bit with the types of Pokemon that are available in the early game. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed as well, and subscribe for more, and with that said, I will see you guys very soon with another new video, and until then, as always, thanks so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.